The Council's vote was close but decisive. 15 species voted to declare humanity a galactic threat and authorize military force. 12 voted against. 23 abstained. It was enough. Admiral Mirai Shin received the intelligence report and felt her stomach tighten. The Council was assembling a grand armada, 2,000 ships from 15 loyal species. It was the largest military force in galactic history. Earth could field 200 ships. Maybe. We can't win, her second officer said quietly. No, Mirai agreed, but we can make them regret starting this war. She called a meeting of all fleet commanders. They gathered in a conference room looking at star charts and casualty projections. The numbers were brutal. Our objective isn't to win, Mirai said. It's to survive. And to make victory cost more than the Council can afford. Colonel Ha-Jun Park spoke up. What does that mean practically? It means we don't fight fair, Mirai said. We ambush. We raid. We target their supply lines and communication networks. We make them bleed for every meter of space. That's not honorable, someone objected. Honor, Mirai said coldly, is for people who can afford it. We're fighting for survival. The fleet commanders nodded grimly. Pilot Yuna Kang listened to the briefing from her fighter bay. She was 24 years old, one of the youngest combat pilots in the fleet. She should have been scared. Instead, she felt strangely calm. All pilots, her squadron leader announced. We launch in 6 hours. Get some rest if you can. Yuna tried to sleep but couldn't. She kept thinking about home, about her parents and younger brother, about the sky above Seoul and the smell of her mother's cooking. If she died today, would it matter? Would anyone remember? She decided it would, because she wasn't fighting for glory. She was fighting so her brother could grow up free. That was worth dying for. The first battle happened at Proxima, a human colony world 3 light-years from Earth. The Council sent 200 ships to capture it. They expected easy victory. Admiral Murray sent 30 human ships to meet them. The Council fleet approached in their standard formation, a wall of ships meant to intimidate and overwhelm. Beautiful, but predictable. Human ships broke into small groups and attacked from multiple angles. They targeted crew habitats instead of engines. They rammed damaged ships instead of trying to disable them. They fought like they had nothing to lose. Because they didn't. The battle lasted 8 hours. When it ended, 87 Council ships were destroyed or crippled. 24 human ships were lost. The galaxy watched in shock. The Council was supposed to be invincible, but they were losing more ships in one battle than they had lost in 4,000 years. High Arbiter Quellion received the casualty reports and felt sick. Thousands dead, thousands more wounded, all in a single engagement. This is unacceptable, he told the War Council. Negotiate a ceasefire. No, the military commander said. We commit more forces. Crush them completely. With what losses? Quellion demanded. How many more thousands must die? But the War Council voted to continue. Pride wouldn't let them stop now. Yuna Kang became famous after the Third Battle of Luna. She led a fighter squadron in a desperate ambush against a Council dreadnought. The plan was insane. Fly directly at the enemy ship, dodging defensive fire, and launch missiles at point-blank range. 12 fighters went in. 3 came back, but the dreadnought was destroyed. Yuna's gun camera footage spread across human space. She became a symbol of human courage. Children drew pictures of her fighter. Songs were written about her squadron. She hated it. She wasn't a hero. She was just trying to survive. Colonel Ha-Jun Park led a special operations team on a suicide mission. They infiltrated a Council flagship while it was docked for repairs, but they didn't sabotage it. Instead, they hacked the communication system and broadcast the Council's private messages. Messages showing that the war wasn't about defending peace. It was about maintaining control. About punishing humans for daring to say no. The messages spread across the galaxy in hours. Public opinion shifted dramatically. Humans weren't aggressors. They were defending themselves against an empire that couldn't accept refusal. 12 more species declared independence from the Council. Some even sent ships to help defend Earth. The Second Battle of Terra was the turning point. The Council sent 800 ships to destroy Earth itself. Every human vessel returned home to defend humanity's birthworld. 198 warships against 800. Admiral Mirai knew they couldn't win, but she also knew they couldn't lose. If Earth fell, humanity fell. All ships, she broadcast. This is our home. They can kill us, but they can't make us surrender. Make them pay for every meter. The battle was brutal beyond imagination. Ships exploded. Debris filled the orbital space. Thousands died on both sides. Then something unexpected happened. 40 ships jumped into the system bearing the flags of newly independent species. They had come to help humanity. We remember, their leader broadcast. You showed us we could be free. Now we stand with you. The Council fleet was suddenly facing not 200 ships, but 240. And the newcomers fought with the same desperate courage as humans. Council Admiral Thexian watched his fleet take casualties and made a decision. He had spent months preparing for this battle. He had committed thousands of ships and millions of lives. For what? To force people to submit? All Council ships, he broadcast. Cease fire and withdraw. Sir? His officers stared at him in shock. I said cease fire, Thexian repeated. This war is wrong. We're killing people for refusing to obey us. That's not peace. That's tyranny. Some Council ships obeyed, others didn't. The fleet fractured into chaos. Some continued fighting. Some withdrew. Some switched sides and began helping defend Earth. The battle ended not with victory, but with confusion and exhaustion. 3 months passed. The war didn't officially end. It just slowly stopped. Council forces withdrew from human space. No treaties were signed. No formal declarations made. The Council simply stopped fighting. High Arbiter Quellion sat alone in his office and stared at casualty reports. 40,000 dead. 100,000 wounded. Entire generations of officers lost. And for what? Humans were still free. More species had left the Council than ever before. The empire he had spent his life maintaining was collapsing. His communication system beeped. A message from Earth. He almost deleted it. Then curiosity made him open it. It was from President Ara Song. High Arbiter. The message read, "The war is over, not because anyone won, but because everyone lost. We lost people we loved. You lost the authority you built. The galaxy lost its certainty. But maybe that's not entirely bad. Maybe it's time for something new. Not the Council's forced peace, not humanity's stubborn independence. Something in between, something better. If you want to talk about it, really talk as equals. We're willing to listen." Quellion stared at the message for a long time. Then, slowly, he began composing a reply. On Earth, people celebrated the end of the war, but it felt hollow to many. They had survived, yes, but the cost had been high. Unicong attended a memorial service for her lost squadron members. Their names were carved into a wall of remembrance. She touched each name and whispered apologies she knew they couldn't hear. "We survived," someone said beside her. Una looked up. It was Admiral Mirai. "At what cost?" Una asked. "Everything," Mirai said, "and that's why it mattered. Freedom isn't free. It never has been." Una nodded slowly. She understood. But understanding didn't make the grief easier. The galaxy was changing. The old order was dead. What would replace it, nobody knew. But humans had proven something important. You could say no to power. You could refuse to submit. You could fight for freedom, and sometimes, just sometimes, you could win. The cost was high. But some things were worth any price, and freedom was one of them. Ambassador Bora Im arrived at the Council station 3 months after the fleet withdrawal. She was humanity's first official representative to the Council, though not in the way they expected. She didn't come to negotiate Earth's membership. She came to observe. The station was enormous, a city and space housing representatives from hundreds of worlds. Bora walked through the grand entrance hall where ancient treaties were displayed on the walls. 12,000 years of history, 12,000 years of species submitting to council authority. She found it depressing. Ambassador Im, a council clerk, greeted her. "We need you to present your credentials and acknowledge council authority before you can enter the main chambers." "No," Bora said simply. The clerk blinked. "I'm sorry? I'm not acknowledging council authority over Earth. I'm here as an observer, not a member. Where's the visitor gallery?" The clerk looked confused. No one had ever asked for the visitor gallery before. But that's for students and tourists, not official representatives." "Perfect," Bora said. "Show me the way." She sat in the gallery with a notebook and a recording device. Below her, council members debated what to do about the human problem. She took notes on everything. After an hour, a councillor noticed her and demanded she be removed. But High Arbiter Quellion intervened. "She hasn't broken any rules," he said tiredly. "Anyone can sit in the gallery." Let her watch, so Bora watched, and she asked questions. When a councillor proposed sanctions against species that left the council, Bora raised her hand. "Why?" she called out. The councillor stared up at her. "Excuse me? Why punish them for leaving? If the council is so great, why do you need to force people to stay?" The chamber fell silent. It was a good question, one nobody had ever dared to ask. "Security," another councillor finally said. "Remove that woman." But security didn't move fast enough. Bora stood and addressed the entire chamber. "You built an empire on the idea that species have no choice," she said. "But we proved they do. You can leave. You can say no. The council only has power because everyone believed they had to obey. What happens when people stop believing?" She was escorted out, but her words remained. General Inho Quan studied the intelligence reports with growing interest. His agents had discovered something fascinating. Many council species maintained secret militaries. Small forces kept weak by council regulations, but militaries nonetheless. They were afraid of attack, afraid of each other, afraid of being defenseless. The council had promised to protect them. But what if the council collapsed? "We could offer them something," Inho told President Ara. "Technology sharing, military training, not to conquer them, but to help them defend themselves." "That would make us very popular," Ara said, "and make the council very angry." "The council is already angry," Inho pointed out. "We might as well be useful while we're at it." The program started small. A few defense satellites here, some weapons technology there, training programs for species that wanted to build real security forces. But it grew quickly. Species realized they could be strong without submitting to the council. They could cooperate with Earth as equals. Councillor Vryn approached Bora one evening as she left the council station. He looked around nervously before speaking. "How did your species do it?" he asked quietly. "How did you say no?" Bora studied him. Vryn was genuinely curious, not hostile. "We decided freedom was worth dying for," she said. "Not just worth fighting for. Worth dying for. Once you make that decision, they can't threaten you anymore. Death is just another price, and you've already decided to pay it if necessary." "But that's insane," Vryn said. "Maybe," Bora agreed. "But it's also effective. The question is, are you willing to live for freedom? That's harder than dying for it." Vryn walked away deep in thought. The next week he went home to Peltheria and called for a referendum. His people voted to leave the council. It was the first council founding member to declare independence. 5 more species followed within days. High Arbiter Quellion tried to hold the council together, but it was like trying to hold water in his hands. Every day brought new defections. Every day brought more demands for independence. He called an emergency session and made a desperate proposal. Arrest Bora Im for inciting rebellion. But when council security tried to arrest her, something unexpected happened. Captain Teho and the defiant pioneer appeared in council space. "Weapons armed, release her," Teho said over open channels. "Now." Council security backed away. They weren't prepared to start a shooting war over one human ambassador, but the incident was broadcast across the galaxy. Everyone saw the council back down again. Everyone saw how weak they really were. The revolution accelerated. 23 worlds erupted in protests. People demanded their leaders withdraw from the council. They wanted the freedom humanity had claimed for itself. "This is your fault," a councillor screamed at Quellion. You should have destroyed the humans when we had the chance. And proved them right? Quellion shot back. Proved that we're tyrants who destroy anyone who disagrees with us? But he knew the counselor was partly right. The council's authority was based on the belief that resistance was futile. Humans had shattered that belief. General Inho sent out a message to all species watching the crisis. If you want independence, Earth will help you. Not with conquest, not with control. With friendship and support. You don't have to be alone, you just have to be free. It was a powerful message. Within a month, 47 species had left the council. Some formed new alliances with Earth. Others formed their own coalitions. A few tried to remain neutral, but the old order was clearly dying. In the council chambers, the remaining members grew desperate. They proposed military action against Earth. They proposed quarantines and embargoes. They proposed everything except the one thing that might work: letting go. Finally, after 3 months of chaos, High Arbiter Quellion made a decision that shocked everyone. He called Earth directly and asked to speak with President Ara. "Please," he said, and his voice was tired and broken. "We must negotiate." There was a long pause. Then Ara's face appeared on screen. "No," she said. Quellion felt despair wash over him. Even now, even after everything, the humans refused to negotiate. But Ara wasn't finished. "We don't negotiate with those who demand submission," she said. "But we will discuss terms of mutual coexistence between sovereign peoples." The distinction was crucial. Not negotiation with a superior power. Discussion between equals. "I don't understand the difference," Quellion admitted. "Then you're starting to learn," Ara said. "Send real representatives. Not enforcers. Not bureaucrats. Send people who understand that we're all equals, or don't send anyone at all." The call ended. In the council chambers, the remaining members stared at each other. Some wanted to be outraged, but most just felt tired. The galaxy was changing. The old certainties were gone, and somewhere in all the chaos, a new order was trying to be born. Bora Im returned to the visitor gallery one last time. She looked down at the council members arguing and bickering and trying desperately to hold on to power they no longer had. She felt almost sorry for them. They had built something that lasted 12,000 years. That was impressive. But they had forgotten the most important rule. Nothing lasts forever. Everything changes. They could change with it or be swept away by it. The choice, as always, was theirs. But humans had already made their choice. They had chosen freedom and they weren't going back. Commander Wuhan sat in his fighter cockpit and waited. 6 days of waiting. 6 days of staring at enemy ships on his screen, his hand resting on the weapon controls, wondering if today would be the day everything exploded into violence. His radio crackled. "All fighters stay alert. No changes to engagement protocols," Wu acknowledged and went back to waiting. He thought about his family on Earth. His sister had sent him a message yesterday. "Come home safe," she wrote. But come home proud. He intended to do both, or die trying. On the council flagship, Admiral Thexian faced a problem he had never encountered before. His fleet had been sitting here for almost a week. They were supposed to intimidate the humans into surrender. Instead, the humans just stared back, weapons armed, daring them to make a move. "This is ridiculous," his second officer said. "We have overwhelming superiority. We should attack and be done with it." "With what?" Thexian asked. "Our ships haven't fired weapons in combat for 4,000 years. Our crews are scientists and diplomats. Their crews are soldiers. Look at their formation." His officer looked. The human ships were arranged in a pattern that maximized firing angles and minimized their exposure. Every vessel supported the others. It was a killing formation, designed by people who understood war. "If we attack," Thexian continued, "we'll win. But the cost will be enormous. They'll fight to the last ship. Maybe to the last person. Can you honestly tell me the council is prepared for that level of casualties?" His officer said nothing. Back on Earth, Dr. Jian Li worked through another night analyzing council communications. She had broken their encryption codes weeks ago. Now she listened to their private channels, hearing the doubt and fear in their voices. "They've never fought a real war," she reported to President Ara. "Their military exists to intimidate, not to fight. They're terrified of actual combat. So we just keep staring at them?" Ara asked. "Exactly," Jian said. "Every day we don't back down, their confidence erodes a little more. They expected us to break in hours. It's been 6 days. Their entire worldview is crumbling. She was right. In the council chambers, panic was spreading. We look weak, one counselor shouted. We sent our greatest fleet, and a primitive species is making us look like cowards. Then what do you suggest? Quellion demanded. We attack and lose thousands of ships? Millions of lives for what? To prove we can force a species to submit? Yes, the counselor screamed. That's exactly what we need to prove. But others were less certain. Counselor Vryn stood slowly. Perhaps, he said quietly, we need to prove something else. Perhaps we need to prove we can admit when we're wrong. The chamber erupted in angry voices. On the seventh day, President Arasong made a broadcast. It went out on every frequency, sent to every ship, every planet, every species in the galaxy. I am President Arasong of Earth, she said. I want to make something very clear to the Galactic Council and to all who are watching. We did not start this conflict. We asked only to be left alone. We asked only for the right to govern ourselves, to make our own choices, to live as free people. The Council demanded we submit. We refused. They sent threats. We ignored them. They sent a fleet. We met them with courage. We will not surrender. We will not negotiate our freedom. We will not bow to those who believe might makes right. But we also will not attack unless attacked. We are not conquerors. We are not aggressors. We are simply people who refuse to be slaves. The Council can leave peacefully, or they can attack and learn what it means to fight a species that has nothing left to lose. The choice is theirs. She paused, then added something that changed everything. To the other species watching this, you don't have to live under the Council's control. You can choose freedom. You can say no. We did, and we're still here. They have power, yes, but they only have power if you give it to them. The message spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Admiral Thexian listened to the broadcast and felt something break inside him. She was right. Everything Ara said was true. The Council maintained control through fear and the illusion of inevitability. Humans had shattered that illusion. Sir, his communication officer said, we're receiving messages from the Council. They want to know our status. Tell them, Thexian said slowly, that I need to think. He looked at his screens. 300 ships under his command. Crews who trusted him. A battle he could probably win, but at a cost that would haunt him forever. And for what? To force people to join a club they didn't want to be part of? All ships, Thexian said into his fleet-wide channel. Prepare to withdraw, sir, his officer asked in shock. We're leaving, Thexian said. This war makes no sense. I won't kill thousands of people just to prove the Council's authority. If they want to punish me for that decision, let them. The Council fleet turned and began moving away from Earth. Slowly at first, then faster, until they reached the edge of the solar system and jumped to FTL. On the Defiant Pioneer, Captain Tejo watched them go and let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. They're retreating, Wu said in disbelief. They're making the smart choice, Tejo corrected. Fighting us wasn't worth the cost. Admiral Doyen stood in the command center and watched the Council fleet disappear. Around him, his officers began to cheer. They had faced down an empire and won without firing a shot, but Doyen didn't cheer. He knew this wasn't over. The Council wouldn't forget this humiliation. Stay alert, he told his fleet. This is just the beginning. He was right. Within hours, the galaxy exploded into chaos. 3 minor species announced they were leaving the Council. They cited President Ara's speech. They said they wanted freedom too. Then 3 more species left. Then 6. The Council tried to stop them, sent fleets to intimidate them back into submission. But the fleets moved slowly, commanded by officers who no longer believed in their mission. And humanity offered something the Council never had. A defense pact based on mutual respect, not domination. Any species that wants independence, President Ara announced, Earth will stand with you. We won't rule you. We won't control you. We'll simply be your friends and allies. It was a revolutionary idea in a galaxy used to hierarchy and submission. Counselor Vryn was the first council member to officially resign. He returned to his homeworld and called for a vote on independence. His people voted overwhelmingly to leave the council and join Earth's alliance. More counselors followed. The carefully constructed empire that had stood for 12,000 years was crumbling in weeks. High Arbiter Quellion watched his life's work collapse and felt only emptiness. He had believed he was maintaining peace, but Ara's words haunted him. They only have power if you give it to them. Maybe the Council's peace hadn't been peace at all. Maybe it had been submission disguised with diplomatic language. In the human fleet, Commander Wu finally got orders to stand down. He flew his fighter back to his carrier, landed, and stepped out onto the deck. His crew surrounded him, laughing and celebrating. They had survived. Earth had survived. "We did it," someone shouted. "We beat the Council." But Wu remembered his sister's message. Come home safe. Come home proud. He had done both. And as he looked around at his crew, at these people who had been willing to die for freedom, he felt something he had never felt before. He felt like humanity had finally found its place in the galaxy. Not as subjects, not as servants, as free people who refused to bow. High Arbiter Quellion had lived for 800 years. He had overseen the integration of 43 species into the Galactic Council. He had negotiated trade disputes, prevented wars, and maintained the longest period of peace in recorded galactic history. And now, a species of primitive apes was making him look like a fool. "They're ignoring our blockade," Council member Thexian reported. "Human ships are slipping through every day. They're exploring, trading with independent systems, even establishing outposts. They act like we don't exist." "Have they responded to our economic sanctions?" Quellion asked. "That's the problem," another counselor said. "They built their entire economy before meeting us. Our sanctions mean nothing. They don't need our trade networks or our currency. They're completely self-sufficient." Quellion's head tentacles twitched in frustration. Every species needed the Council. Every species feared isolation. Except humans. Send cultural envoys, Quellion decided. Make them understand their place in the galactic hierarchy. Show them what they're missing by refusing to join. On Earth, strategist Narration watched the alien envoys arrive with barely hidden amusement. They came in elaborate ships wearing ceremonial robes, bringing gifts of technology and art. They spoke of the wonders of Council membership, the prestige, the access to thousands of years of accumulated knowledge. "It's a bribe," Nari told President Arasong. "They're trying to tempt us." "Will it work?" Ara asked. "On some people, maybe," Nari said. "But here's what they don't understand. They expect us to be afraid. They expect us to need them. We don't. We've been alone in the universe for our entire history. We're used to it." The cultural envoys were treated politely. They were given tours of Earth, shown museums and cities, but they were also shown something else. A human guide took them to the ruins of ancient battlefields, to museums dedicated to wars that killed millions, to memorials for empires that fell and rose again, to libraries full of books about revolutions and rebellions and people who refused to submit. "You want us to understand our place?" the guide said. "This is our place. We are a species that breaks chains. We always have been." The envoys returned to the Council deeply disturbed. Engineer Suji Bay stood in the shipyard and smiled at her creation. The new warship gleamed under the construction lights, bristling with weapons and armor plating. "It's not efficient," her assistant said. "Council ships use their space for cargo and laboratories. This thing is mostly guns and shields." "Council ships are built for peace," Suji said. "Ours are built for war." There's a difference, and there was. Human ships were smaller than Council vessels, but they were fast and heavily armed. Every design assumed combat. Every system had 3 backups. Every ship could fight alone or in formation. Because humans knew something the Council had forgotten. Peace doesn't last forever. Admiral Doyen inspected the new fleet with satisfaction. 200 warships all ready for combat. It wasn't enough to match the Council's numbers, but it was enough to make them think twice. "They still don't believe we'll fight," his aide said. "Let them think that," Doyen replied. "It's an advantage." But the Council was beginning to understand. Dr. Jian Li, Earth's leading xenopsychology expert, had been studying the Council species for months. She published a report that changed everything. "The Council species all evolved in resource-rich systems," she wrote. "They had easy access to energy, minerals, and habitable planets. Competition was rare. Cooperation was the obvious strategy. Humans evolved on a death world. We competed for everything. Every calorie, every advantage, every piece of land. We developed tribal thinking, strategic warfare, and the willingness to die for abstract concepts like freedom and pride. The Council thinks we're irrational. We think they're naive. We're both right." The report spread through Earth's government and military. It explained everything. The Council wasn't evil or stupid. They just couldn't comprehend a species that valued freedom over security. Counselor Vryn of the Peltharian delegation read the human report with growing fascination. He had always felt uncomfortable with the Council's methods, but he had never questioned them. Reading about humanity's history made him ask dangerous questions. What if the Council wasn't bringing peace? What if it was enforcing submission? Back in Council chambers, the debate grew heated. We should destroy them, one counselor argued. They're a threat to galactic order. We've never destroyed a species, another protested. It goes against everything we stand for. Then what do we suggest? Vrexith demanded. They ignore our authority. They reject our offers. They corrupt other species with their ideas of independence. If we do nothing, the entire council structure could collapse. Quellion raised a hand for silence. Send an enforcement fleet. Not to attack, but to demonstrate overwhelming force. Make them understand that resistance is futile. 300 council ships assembled at the edge of human space. It was the largest fleet movement in 4,000 years. Every species in the galaxy watched and waited. On Earth, Admiral Doyen called an emergency meeting. 300 ships, he said. We have 45 ready for deployment. Can we win? President Ara asked. No, Doyen said honestly. But we can make it so costly they'll wish they never came. Then we fight, Ara said simply. Hannah Park stood and faced the room. If we fight, thousands will die. Maybe millions. Are we sure this is what we want? They're not giving us a choice, Nari said. Submit or die. Those are the options they're offering. Then we choose neither, Ara said. We fight not because we want to, but because some things are worth dying for. Freedom is one of them. The message went out to every human in the solar system. An alien fleet was coming. War was possible. Civilians should evacuate to protected shelters. Military personnel should report to stations. The response shocked the council observers. Instead of panic, there was determination. Instead of fleeing, people volunteered to fight. Shipyards worked around the clock. Weapons factories doubled their output. They're preparing for war, the council observers reported. Not reluctantly, eagerly. Impossible, Quellion said. Show me. He watched the video feeds from Earth, saw people saying goodbye to families, saw soldiers boarding ships, saw engineers working until they collapsed. And he saw something else. He saw them smiling. They're not afraid, he whispered. The enforcement fleet arrived 6 weeks later. 300 council ships entered the solar system in perfect formation. It was meant to be overwhelming, a show of power so great that resistance seemed pointless. Admiral Doyen watched them come and felt his heart beat faster. Fear and excitement mixed together. This was it. Everything came down to this moment. All ships, he said into the communication system, moved to intercept positions. 45 human warships moved forward to meet 300 alien vessels. On the council flagship, Admiral Thexian watched in disbelief. They're actually going to fight us. They're outnumbered 7-1 and they're still coming. Open a channel, he ordered. Tell them to stand down. Tell them we'll negotiate. But Doyen cut the transmission before Thexian could finish speaking. The two fleets faced each other across the darkness of space. Neither moved. Neither blinked. For 6 days they waited. Council ships had superior numbers. Human ships had superior determination. The standoff continued, and the galaxy held its breath. Captain Taiho Kim stood on the bridge of the Defiant Pioneer and watched the alien ship appear on his screens. It was massive, 10 times bigger than his vessel and shaped like a crystal flower. Beautiful, he thought. But he kept his hand near the weapons console anyway. They're hailing us, Captain, said his communications officer. Put them through, Taiho said. A face appeared on the screen. It wasn't human. It had 4 eyes arranged in a square pattern and skin that shimmered like oil on water. When it spoke, the translator turned its words into perfect English. Greetings, primitive species. I'm Ambassador Vrexith of the Galactic Council. We have detected your recent development of faster-than-light travel. You are hereby summoned to Earth orbit for integration protocols. Taiho raised an eyebrow. Integration protocols? Yes, all species must join the Galactic Council upon achieving FTL capability. We will arrive at your homeworld in 3 solar rotations. Prepare your leaders for instruction. The transmission ended before Taiho could respond. Did that alien just call us primitive and tell us to prepare for instruction? Asked his pilot, Lieutenant Wuhan. Yes, Taiho said. Yes, it did. 3 days later, the Harmony delegation arrived at Earth. Their ship hung in orbit like a small moon, surrounded by dozens of smaller escort vessels. Every screen on Earth showed the same image. Aliens had arrived and they wanted to talk. Ambassador Hannah Park stood in the United Nations building in New York, watching the alien ship through the windows. She had spent her entire career preparing for this moment, first contact with alien life. She had imagined it would be exciting, full of wonder and possibility. She had not imagined it would be annoying. The Galactic Council had been transmitting for 47 hours straight. Their message was clear: submit to Council authority, hand over all FTL technology for safety evaluation, accept economic integration under Council terms, allow Council observers in all government functions, and adopt Council standards for everything from ship design to agricultural practices, or face immediate quarantine. No trade, no contact, no place in galactic society. Hannah listened to all 47 hours. She took notes. She consulted with Earth's leaders, scientists, and military commanders. Then she walked into the communication chamber where the Council's holographic representatives waited. Ambassador Park, Vrexith said, have you prepared Earth's formal submission documents? No, Hannah said. Vrexith's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. I apologize. Perhaps the translation was unclear. You must submit your species to Council authority. This is not optional. I understood perfectly, Hannah said, and my answer is no. The chamber fell silent. The dozen Council representatives looked at each other. Finally, Vrexith spoke again. You refuse? Yes. This is not how this works, Vrexith said. His voice had lost its smooth diplomatic tone. You negotiate. You make counteroffers. You ask for better terms. You don't simply refuse. Why not? Hannah asked. Because no species refuses. In 12,000 years of Council history, every species negotiates. Some get better terms than others, but all eventually join. Hannah smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. Then I suppose we're the first to just say no. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have actual work to do. She turned and walked out of the chamber, leaving the Council delegation staring after her in shock. Admiral Doyun Choi sat in his office at the United Defense Fleet headquarters and laughed until his sides hurt. He had just watched the recording of Hannah's meeting with the Council 3 times. She just walked out, he said to his second-in-command. Didn't argue, didn't debate, just said no and left. The Council is losing their minds, his second replied. They've sent 17 messages in the past hour demanding negotiations. What did we tell them? Nothing. We're ignoring them. Doyen grinned. Perfect. But his smile faded as he looked at the star charts on his wall. The Council had thousands of ships, millions of worlds, technology far beyond Earth's capabilities. Saying no was easy. Living with the consequences would be harder. Sir, his aide said from the doorway, Captain Kim has just left Earth orbit. He's heading into deep space, and did he file a flight plan? Yes, sir. He's going to explore the Sagittarius Arm. That's Council territory. Yes, sir, Captain Kim said, and I quote, They told us we need permission to travel. I disagree. Doyen laughed again, but this time it was quieter. Tejo was forcing the issue, making the Council respond. It was bold. It was also dangerous. Keep me updated, he said. 2 weeks later, the Council made its move. A fleet of 50 ships arrived at the edge of Earth's solar system. They didn't enter, didn't attack. They just sat there. A wall of alien vessels blocking humanity's path to the stars. It's a blockade, Doyen told the Earth Council. They're trying to trap us here until we negotiate. Can we break through? President Arasong asked. Maybe, Doyen said. But it would mean war. Then we don't break through, Ara said. We go around, Doyen stared at her. Ma'am? They're blocking the obvious routes, Ara said. But space is big. We send our ships through paths they're not watching. We continue exploring, continue building, continue living our lives. We act like the blockade doesn't exist. They'll be furious, Hannah said. Good, Ara replied. Let them be furious. We're not starting a war, but we're also not stopping our lives because they're having a tantrum. Over the next month, human ships slipped past the blockade. Some went through asteroid fields the Council ships were too big to navigate. Others used the gravity wells of gas giants to slingshot past the Watchers. 2 ships simply flew straight through the blockade at high speed, daring the Council to fire. The Council didn't fire. They sent more angry messages. Earth ignored them. On the defiant Pioneer, Tejo discovered something interesting. Council ships were slow. Not in terms of FTL speed, but in terms of reaction time. When his ship approached, they took hours to respond, as if they had to check with higher authority before acting. Human ships made decisions in seconds. They're bureaucrats, Tejo told his crew. Their entire system is built on rules and procedures. They literally don't know what to do with someone who ignores the rules. How long can we keep this up? Wu asked. Tejo looked at the stars ahead. As long as we have to. We're not backing down. Back on Earth, Hana Park received a final message from Vrexith. The alien's four eyes looked tired, frustrated. You are making a terrible mistake, Vrexith said. The Council has maintained peace for 12,000 years. We have rules for a reason. If you continue this path, there will be consequences. Hana typed her response slowly, making sure every word was clear. We did not ask to join your council. We did not ask for your rules. We do not need your permission to exist. Leave us alone, or learn to accept that humanity will not bow. She sent the message and closed the channel. Admiral Doyen watched his sensors as more council ships began arriving at the solar system's edge. The blockade was growing. Soon it would be an invasion fleet. They're coming, he told his officers. Get every ship ready. This is going to get worse before it gets better. But deep down, Doyen felt something strange. Not fear, not even worry. Pride. Humanity had said no to an empire of thousands of worlds. And they meant it. Whatever came next, they would face it standing up, not on their knees. The galaxy was about to learn what humans were really like.